Oh, this is just too delicious. I had to make this video because last week I posted this video on my main Fototripper YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed, I'll put a link in the description. And it was actually a video about a trip to Iceland, but at the beginning of the video, I did this whole segment about the fact that I'd been accused of AI fakery with this image, which I call Moonglow. And in that video, I explained that I really did shoot this image way back in 2017. And I even showed a few seconds of me playing with the RAW file, but that was clearly not enough for some people. Michael writes, "The photography you taken in this video was indeed real, but the Moonglow picture is definitely fake. Would have been easier to prove if you just filmed some footage that night. I wasn't a vlogger in 2017. So that tells me automatically it's bullshit." Sorry, I got a bit, I was channeling you there, it just got a bit too far into character. And I also got some legitimate questions from people that were just curious about the details. So let's put this to bed right now. I'm going to show you the pure unedited RAW files and we'll have a little bit of fun playing with them. But the main purpose of this video is to inspire you, because I reckon once you've seen what I could do with these old RAW files, you're probably going to be inspired to go back, dig out some of your own RAW files and see if you can also polish an absolute gem. Or maybe this might just inspire you to go out at night and shoot your own beautiful images once you see what can be done with a half-decent RAW file. Alright, so here we are in Adobe Bridge. So if I show you this is the finished image. It's been processed. Now, I would never process my image like this these days. This is way back in 2017, and plenty of people did accuse me of overcooking this image, and I will fully hold up my hands and say yes, that was overcooked. I would not do it like that now. And maybe that's the reason why some people think it looks fake. So this image consists of at least 2 RAW files blended together because of the dynamic range. Let me show you. So I've got this one here. This is the brighter exposure. You'll see it's got some tweaks on it. We're going to clear those off. So let's right click, develop settings and clear settings. So this is the brighter exposure. And the reason why even that is underexposed is because I didn't want to blow out those highlights in the building there. And then you've got these 2 darker exposures, which are brackets, just so that I've got tons of dynamic range. So those lights in the building there are definitely not going to get blown out. So this is my brighter exposure. And then I took another bright exposure, which you'll see here. Again, this has got some processing tweaks on it. I'll clear those in a second, but I just wanted to show you this with a few processing tweaks on it because this is my focus stack. Yes, focus stacking. Oh, that's cheating. That's fake. Now, if you think that focus stacking is cheating and fakery, welcome to the internet. If you don't know what focus stacking is, basically I focused on this part of the foreground here, whereas on this image I focused on the background, and that means I can just blend the 2 together so that it's sharp from the background right through to the foreground. But let's right click and we'll just get rid of those settings as well. Clear settings. So this is a purely unedited RAW file. So these 2 have fairly close to the same exposure. The only difference is the focus point. So let's double click on this and launch this into Adobe Camera RAW, and you can see just what can be done with an old RAW file like this. Now this was shot on a Sony a7R II with a Canon 24-105 lens at 28mm. I had a little adapter and I shot this at f11 for an exposure of 30 seconds with ISO 2000. I also did a whole bunch of other frames where I just didn't need to shoot for 30 seconds, and some of those were at f8 and those were really sharp, but I had less depth of field in that foreground, and that's what I really wanted. So I tried a whole range of different shutter speeds, whole range of different apertures, different ISOs, just to get more than I actually needed. But in the end, I really just needed these 2 RAW files. So you can see right off the bat, it's very dark. And as I said, I shot this underexposed because I didn't want to lose the detail in these highlights. But let's play with some sliders. So let's pull that down and pull that white down just to bring those details back in those highlights. But of course it's way too dark. So let's push up the shadows, let's push up the blacks, and even with that, you can see that this histogram is whinging. It's saying that everything's too dark. Well, it's a good job I've got those bracketed exposures so I could do an exposure blend. Now for this video, I'm not going to get into the whole exposure blending thing. I just want to show you what can be done with a few basic tweaks. But if you're interested in learning more about exposure blending, check out my course, Exposure Blending Simplified. There's a link in the description. So as you can see, I have not done anything with the colors of this image, and the reason why it's so very blue is because of the white balance that I chose, and I think it was incandescent. I tend to like that a little bit better on the Sony cameras because it makes things a lot bluer, and I really like that. But if you look at the color temperature down here, you can see that that is my Kelvin temperature. I could warm that up and bring that to something a bit more natural. And when I warm it up, you can really see that orange light bouncing off these lovely pillowy mounds, which I actually don't like. I found it a little bit too orange. So let's take it back closer to what I had to start off with. That's probably close to what I shot with. Maybe I should just warm it up a little bit to something like that. We'll go back to the light tab and I'll just brighten it up a little bit just so that you can see a bit clearer what's going on, and we'll just pull that contrast slider over there a little bit, and that's blowing out those highlights. Again, I would definitely exposure blend. Maybe we'll bring that down, maybe we'll soften that a little bit. It's looking a bit ridiculous. But you can see with just a few very basic Adobe Camera RAW tweaks that you can do in any editing software, it's starting to look a lot closer to the finished image. Now let me address a couple of other points that people complained about when they thought it was fake. Let's zoom in here. Now look at this reflection. You'll see that this reflection, if you look at the shadow areas, those shadows are brighter than the shadows of the thing that it's reflecting, which should be impossible. Anytime that you see a reflection, it's always just a little bit darker than the thing that it is reflecting. But what people don't know about this location is that this water is heated. The reason why this water is heated is because this bridge here is used for the shuttle bus that takes people up the hill to the resort. So they keep it a little bit warm so that it doesn't completely freeze and make the bridge a problem. And that means that this water here is a lot warmer than the actual temperature in the air. So when that warmer temperature of the water meets the very, very cold air, you get mist rising off the top of the water. And so that mist is occluding the reflection, making it look brighter than what it's reflecting. Feel free to post your apology down below. I'll look for that. Another comment that I got was, if this is actually a real exposure at night, surely the stars wouldn't just be dots, there'd be a star trail. Well, there's a smudge. It's not a star trail, but if we zoom in, you can see that there is a little bit of a smudge there because it's a 30-second exposure at 28mm. But when you zoom out to look at the overview image, it just looks like a dot. It doesn't look like a trail. And that's one of the reasons why when I sometimes do astrophotography or Milky Way photography, I don't shy away from doing a 30-second exposure. I really don't care that much if the stars are a little bit smudged, because the overall image is often so big that it still just looks like a little dot, but it's nice and bright. Another question that I got was, the snow pattern looks unnatural. Snow doesn't do that. Well, it does if it's got footprints in it. So what you're looking at here, every one of these holes is a footprint. People have just trampled all over this snow, and then it's had fresh snow go on top, which gives it these lovely pillowy mounds. Another comment that I got was, snow doesn't sparkle like that. Well, I'm sorry to tell you that it actually does. You perhaps need to get out a little bit more. Now let's look at where I lost focus. So obviously the background is really sharp, but if we move down towards the foreground, you can see that round about here, I'm starting to lose sharpness. My depth of field is starting to find its limits. It looks sharp here, but over there, it's getting a little bit soft. And so that's why I shot that extra frame focus stack where I actually focused somewhere around here so that I could blend it into the finished image and everything would look sharp. So let's look at that frame now. I'll just right click here, develop settings, copy those develop settings, go down to this focus frame and then paste those on just so that it's got the exact same tweaks. Double click on that, launch that into Adobe Camera RAW. So now if I zoom in here, you can see that this area is much sharper, but the background is blurred. That's what you do when you do a focus stack. Now, if you think that focus stacking is cheating or fakery, here, Have one of these. It's a chill pill. Another question that I got was, how is this light doing this? So what you need to understand about the moonlight that was bouncing off the moon behind me is it was just coming up over the top of some trees. So behind me, to my left, this whole area is in the shade of those trees. And so these little bits of dappled light that you can see, and also over here, like if I zoom in a little bit, you could see a bit of light there, a little bit of light on that log, and these streaks of light here that are breaking through those trees, that is just moonlight breaking through trees, and it creates that lovely spotted dappled light effect. One thing that's wrong with this image, one technical problem, is the lens flare. You can see these two spots, one there and one there, and that's obviously caused by these light sources, but I think I just left them in. So there you go, full transparency. I don't know what more I can do to prove to you that this is not a fake AI image and that I actually shot this image way back in 2017. So what I'm hoping is that this little demonstration here has inspired you to either go out and shoot your own beautiful night images, knowing that you can stretch the images this much, or maybe go and dig out an old image off of your hard drive and see if you've got an absolute banger that you didn't realize that you had. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it the old thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, tickle my bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.